Welcome back to What the Fertility Season 3. Today we have on with us True.IVF.Story, and she's going to share with us her long journey. It's been 6 years of infertility. She's gone through 8 IUIs, 9 IVFs, 7 losses. She's also now searching for a surrogate. So we're really excited just to hear about your whole entire journey and just speak to all the treatments that you've gone through and just everything throughout your whole journey. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I know we're really excited to have you on and just kind of I'll give you the floor and just let us like walk you through your whole journey. Start from the beginning. 6 years, that's a really long time. You've been through a lot of procedures, transfers, you've gone through a lot of losses. So if you want to kind of just start from the beginning and just where it all began.
Yeah, thank you. By this point, it's actually 6.5 years. And the only reason I say that is because I look back and say, oh my gosh, like, wow, like I'm still here. And wow, the time that has gone by, and definitely reflecting on, what so many of us say in this community, which is, wow, I never thought I'd be here.
Mhm.
I never thought this is what my adult life would have turned out like 6 years in terms of disruption, and what you envision your family planning ways to go and the multitude of impacts that it has. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people in the community struggle with. One, understanding at the beginning of the journey as you're kind of getting immersed in it. And then as you're going along the way, it's like, okay, now it's impacting my career. Now it's impacting my body image. Now it's impacting, hey, how I kind of feel like I relate to doctors, even, like you're a little bit more leery. You get to a point where, like medical procedures now, it's like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want to sit through another session of being poked and prodded by another set of eyes. And certainly like the emotional toll, I know for me, like I started out, I'm a very resilient person, a very positive person at the beginning. Like the first 2.5 years, I talk about, I used to hop up on those OR tables, like, okay, let's get this going, let's do another laundry. Well, how exciting, and gifts for the nurses and cracking jokes and, you know, by the time I got to the end of my last retrieval, oh my gosh, completely depleted and exhausted. And again, like leery of being touched and just a lot of anxiety around procedures and the wear and tear of grieving as well, which gets compounded, like your first loss is not like your seventh loss.
Mhm.
And so I guess if I had to think of ways or nuggets that could be helpful to other people that are either starting off or still kind of metabolizing their experience. I think it's that, be extra kind with yourself because you don't know like the almost tsunami of events and the ups and downs and the toll that it has on you as you try and navigate, with patience and with grace and understanding. And it's a lot. It's really a lot. So,
Yeah, what I hear you say, it's like, and I'm not sure how many egg retrievals you have. I know you've said 9 IVFs, if that's inclusive of the transfers, but what I hear you say is like, it's the same on paper procedure, the same like method, but the toll of the years of it and the multitude really like puts you in a different mind space and just being prepared that it might not happen the first time. I know it didn't for myself or Amanda.
yeah. Yeah, no, that's a really key point. So yeah, so it's been 9 egg retrievals because then I've had 3 transfers, yeah, and 8
Wow.
IUIs, yeah, before that and kind of sprinkled in between as well. And it was just this innate drive, I can't even call it like it wasn't even it's not like, you set your goals when you were a kid about what you wanted to achieve in school or your career and tick. No, it's like this visceral drive, this biological need of, I want to have a child. I need to get closer to having my child.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like, I think we kind of like nobody really prepares you for it either. Like at the clinics, it's just kind of like you're going through the process, but nobody says to you, hey, the chances of it working out the first 1 or two times are actually kind of very slim.
Right.
So there is a little bit of a marathon to it.
Right. And so did you have a certain diagnosis, or were you, I guess, kind of what led you to move into like like the IUIs and IVF?
Yeah, so I had I had low AMH, and so I was getting about one euploid embryo per cycle. And because we wanted to have more than one child, I just kept going.
Sure.
And then we had three failed transfers. And I got diagnosed with repeated implantation failure, which is very ambiguous and kind of becomes the diagnosis that you get after three failed transfers. So I think the literature says that by the third transfer, 90% of people should be impregnated.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
we haven't talked about on the
Yeah.
podcast in all three seasons. That's really interesting.
It is, but there's so many nuances to that too. And then actually, when I dig into my last two transfers, there was a medical error. Like I had an ERA done and it wasn't adhered to for the last two transfers. So technically, I will never really know if that was just the thing that I needed. And it does end up being just the thing for many women. Like otherwise, they're always implanting on day 6 and it's cookie cutter kind of protocol. But the ERA, for those who may not know, measures, hey, do you need one more day or less day of progesterone? Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold, so my voice is struggling a bit. But and what they discovered for me was, oh, I needed a whole extra 24 hours. Like it actually nails it down to the hour. And for a lot of women, we do have these nuances of what our body needs too. So that's the other thing is being relinquishing control to the professionals and to the process and to your body and then anything else out there that
Right. Like you
Yeah.
make great points. Like, okay, maybe it's like reoccurrent implantation failure, but there's so many factors. That's not like each transfer was like exactly the same.
right.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming I kind of heard you say it, you kind of changed your protocol per transfer. Is that the case?
Well, we had tried to, and things were kind of looking good on paper. Like, they check your lining thickness and for the trilaminar pattern that they're looking for, and those things were there, but I did not. So I had changed doctors at that point, and that doctor did not adhere to the ERA for the extra 24 hours of progesterone. And truly, I will never know if that was it. But at that point, it was like, okay, I can't expend any more embryos, you
Right.
know, and
Yeah.
then you get like, I mean, on top of the normal, very high anxiety of going through these, it's like you get even more anxious saying, like, I couldn't, I don't want to chance that embryo failing on me,
Right.
so yeah, that
That's kind
coupled
of
with,
what
sorry,
led you to I was gonna say, is that what led you to the surrogate?
yeah, and a really caring doctor who honestly talked to me about it like he brought it up like 3, 4 times, and the first time it was like, oh, I don't know. That's, I don't know anything about it. It's like totally out of our control. And I'm in Canada. So it's extremely difficult to find a surrogate in Canada. Like people are waiting 2 to 5 years in the
Like,
US.
oh, I would love to hear later. Let's hear
Yeah.
this. I'd love to hear the process specifically to Canada.
Yeah, yeah. So in the US, you guys have a much better model, like it's compensated. And because of that, people are signing up and you can match with the surrogate in like 3 days to 3 weeks, and off you
Right.
go. But here it's what we call altruistic model. So, people are coming to it for beautiful reasons, but they're sadly only being reimbursed for journey related expenses. And that's a lot to ask of somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if you don't mind us asking, where are you at? Or I guess maybe what was the deciding factor for you in changing from, okay, I'm going to keep trying to do these transfers on my own to moving to the surrogate, and how long ago? Because I know you said it's been 6.5 years. Was this a recent decision? Have you
Yeah, so that was a year ago now. So we've been a year in and or just over a year at this point. And like I said, it was that doctor who was, who a very trusted confidant that like I got to the end of my third transfer and was like, okay, we're dwindling embryos. I'm terrified. We could like it could be a real like possibility that we come out of all of this without any children.
Mhm.
And so he talked about it the first time and we kind of scoffed it off because it's also very complex legally and financially
Mhm.
and the second time and then the third meeting and by the fourth meeting he was like, look, like these are this is precious genetic material you have worked so hard to create. You're so deserving of being parents. I hate to see you come out of this without it. And then
Oh,
he actually shared with me, he's
that's
like,
beautiful. I
yeah,
love
it's
that he shared
really
that.
like he so cared.
Yeah.
And and then was like, look, a cousin of mine has had a surrogate and she's actually become a part of the family and it's the most beautiful thing ever. And it was like,
Oh,
okay. That coupled with, quite honestly, needing my husband to say to me, you are worn out.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
you've made it, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but you making it through 6 years is a lot longer than I mean, I made it, what, Amanda, a year and 2 years, and I said, I'm done. I'm moving to adoption. I can't do this.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's a lot.
it's a very long time. Very long time.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to honor what you shared and your journey there too, because that's a big deal. That's a big toll too. So
Yeah, yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know Amanda and I's story, like mine was very, both of ours were kind of wild, but yeah, the
Mhm.
IVF process for me, I was only able to do one round and my physician was phenomenal too. He was going to offer me a paid second round because he thought it was a financial thing. And I was like, while I appreciate the offer, this was very emotionally draining.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is you kind of like you're learning as you go. You're immersed in these deep waters, and it's like, where
Mhm.
do I find myself right now?
Yeah.
And like that's actually how I came to social media. Like I'm not somebody who even like I'm not a big social media person, but I started seeing stuff about other people's journeys that kind of helped me go, oh, okay, like what I'm thinking and feeling right now is like par for the course,
Mhm.
between the
Right.
hormones and the ups and downs of the journey of hope and then despair and then waiting and then, regrouping and doing it all again. Like, yeah, so it's a lot.
So I heard you mention in the beginning too, just the tolls that infertility and treatment can take like on your professional career and like really on your marriage and in your personal life. Do you want to expand on any of that maybe that you experience personally?
Yeah, I mean, like for example, body image. Like I ended up gaining weight through each session cycle. And then I try to lose weight between the next one, but I was hardly taking any breaks. So just as I would lose a little bit, then I'm starting again and gaining again. And, then it's like, oh, it's supposed to be 6 months, but now it's 6 years in and I haven't bought any new clothes because I was supposed to get back to my regular clothes. So now I'm wearing sweats all the time. And now I feel awful about the way that I look. And then I had a major, major loss. And it's like, I have to go on leave from work. Before that, like at other points in time, it's like, can I do reduced hours? You're not really totally functioning in the role. You're not so sure about what you want to share with,
Mhm.
in the workplace. Are you going to be judged as, oh, they're not performing as good as they can kind of thing? So there's all questions around that. And then going on leave is like, that was a doozy. That was really hard for me to do. Like I even drove to my doctor's and then literally turned away right in front of the like doorstep because it was like I can't go on leave. I can't do that. And then
Yeah.
no, you have to. Like you need
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And there are, reasons why people go on leave. It's just that, sadly, I have seen, like I'm sure many of you, people get judged for going on leave.
Especially, yeah. And I'm so sorry we haven't even like brought light to all of your losses. We are very sorry about that. Amongst the 6.5 years of trying, I can relate to you in terms of I had 6 miscarriages, and to your point, tried to work the whole time. And I had a
Right.
really supportive boss, and he was very like, don't only take off the day of your D&C, like we got you covered for the week ahead. But I can't imagine not having a supportive environment like that. And again, my whole team is female, so that's they again
Helpful.
understanding and helpful.
Yeah.
I don't know in Canada, but in the US, and Amanda, you may have seen it. It was very just prominent to me since I lived it. They have now, bereavement leave is now inclusive for miscarriage in the US,
Wow,
which
I
is very
love that.
recent. Yeah,
Huh.
which is like 3 to 5 days bereavement leave, no questions asked, and it's inclusive of any type of miscarriage, which is pretty cool.
That is awesome. Yeah. Yeah, no, we don't have anything like formally like that, but I mean, that's another thing for like, women going through is one, the impact on your career, what you thought, where you also thought you would be, but you're making different decisions now because you want to plan for your family. And then just do you disclose? Don't you disclose? Like, and if it goes on for so long, are people also going to be understanding, many years in? Like it's all those kinds of things to tackle with.
I definitely felt that because mine was such a whirlwind of, I mean, gosh, I mean, I think one year I had 4 losses in 12 months. And to your point, it was like, I almost felt like I was like the girl that cried wolf, because it was like he was so understanding the first time. Then the second time he was still understanding. Then the third time he was like, this isn't you. Are you making this up? And I know he wasn't, because he was supportive through it all. And then the following year I
Right.
went through 2 more. But it is, you kind of like start doubting yourself. And it sounds like me as well. I'm in a pretty high paced professional environment, and you're
Right.
kind of like, you're always trying to mask that feminine side, I think, when you're in certain careers. And so then this like bubbling to the surface is really tough to make that call of what do I share and how much.
Right. No, you're absolutely correct. And that's the other thing is, like being in a high performing kind of an environment, you always got to be on top of your game. And, so like, I mean, for example, you just reminded me that the first call that I got that I was pregnant the first time, I was like, rushing out of a meeting, standing in a hallway, getting this phone call, going like, wow. And that was actually the very beginning of my journey. It was like, okay, this is going to be a lot easier than I thought. And then you go in for that second beta and it's like, oh no, it's a chemical pregnancy. And it's like, oh, okay. And
Mhm.
again, now I have to turn from that hallway conversation and go back into a meeting. And what do you do with all those feelings? And you're like needing to lead a conversation right now? So
A
there's all that
hundred,
going on.
yeah. I can even, yeah, all my betas, I would always be at work when I would pull them up on my lab. And for the last miscarriage, I was like, I'm not going to look at this at work, because I feel like now I'm like jinxing myself. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you know this, I work in an OBGYN. So it was just constantly being around these pregnant women. And then you're like the one that's getting that 1% of news every time. So can totally relate to that.
Yeah, it's hard, and there's that extra layer of emotional labor in the workplace too. And yeah, so
So how is your husband in terms with surrogacy? Is he fully on board?
he is fully on board. And actually, it was like that last conversation with our doctor that he was like, yes, I think we need to very seriously consider this. And okay, it's not conventional. We don't know enough about it, but we'll learn. And, there's amazing stories out there of these incredible people that have facilitated family building. I mean, like what greater legacy can anybody possibly do? Like it's just incredible. And
Completely
so,
agree.
yeah, so we had like a whole, honestly, a whole day talking about it and got to the end of the day that was like, okay, yeah, you know what? That's what we're gonna do. That's what we're gonna embark on. So, um, you know, I know people's relationships are affected going through the fertility journey, the ups and downs of it too. And we've had that. And I guess the other thing I really want to relate to other people is just really turn to each other, because the stress of it can almost make you get snappy and irritable because you're just kind of in the world that you're in and you're acting out. But like, try and rein that in and turn to each other for that comfort and support. And like, it has, I mean, we had a good marriage when we started out. We had some ups and downs during the process. And now we've got the best marriage that we've ever had. And I'm so grateful for it, because it really is that soft place to land. And when other people who are not going through this experience don't necessarily understand what you're going through, you both do.
Mm.
And you can accompany each other through, those really hard feelings,
I
and
love
get
that.
each other through it. Yeah.
No, that's so important because yeah, especially during this, I really think it's like half and half. Some people, unfortunately, there's like a really high divorce rate.
Yeah.
It really can break people apart, but coming together, like you said, and I love what you said. You said like lean into each other or like turn into each
Mhm.
other. I
Yeah,
love
yeah, or lean into each other. Exactly. Yeah.
That's so good. So I saw on your Instagram that you are doing like a campaign for your surrogacy. Is that it's like to spread your campaign? It's like an incentive you have too.
It has been. Yeah, it's on pause at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so what does, I guess, the surrogacy process look like? I know you're in for a year. So for you, and to Amanda's point, like, what does your journey look like since you guys said we're going to do this?
Yeah. So we've signed up with an agency, and so the way it works is the agencies have or try to look for people who are interested in being surrogates. And they kind of get online and they get to look at a bunch of different profiles. But right now in Canada, it's one surrogate for every 100 IPs.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think those ratios are even bigger than like adoption in the US, because that's just one per 100 intended parents. Wow.
exactly. And we've got, I mean, a tiny population compared to you folks. We've got like 38 million. I don't know if we've hit 40 million just yet. So that, combined with the way the economy is lately, like there's a massive shortage of surrogates. So it's a very difficult process.
And this is probably a really silly question, but just something I'm thinking of. As a Canadian resident, like, you couldn't work with a US surrogate agency. Do you know?
You can, but then there's very different legal implications, but then you would also have an American lawyer. Um, but it is also like 3 to 3.5 times the cost.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. And I mean, it's not like surrogacy is a fast process in the US either. It's not like that might be the best option. Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so it's a challenge, and it's sad when you see all these couples trying to put forward their profiles and just get the attention, and you just hope and wait for that one lucky individual that you happen to hit it off with, and off you go. So
Well, I wanted to circle back. I know you kind of talked about your losses, and then I saw that it said that you had a 1 in 30,000 natural occurring. It's a heterotopic. Is that how you say it? Did I say that right?
correct.
Pregnancy. Do you mind talking a little bit about that? Because I don't think we've talked about this on the show.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, just crazy making. So I've been pregnant 3 times, and all 3 times it happened naturally. And so at that point, we had already started our search for a surrogate, and lo and behold, I get pregnant again.
Oh,
And so, I mean, I just didn't even know what to make of the positive test at this point. It was like, are you kidding? After 5 years, 5.5 years. So I was very cautious with it, but was like, okay, maybe we could be that story, those people who, after they just stop trying, bam, there's their miracle baby. My husband was like right out of the gate, straight to delivery day. Like, he was like, that's it. This is it. It's happening for us. Um, and I went and had a first beta, and it was good. And then a second beta, and it was good. It had, I think, just doubled. And then somewhere between the second and the third, I had a miscarriage at home. And like it was touch and go. It was kind of like, oh, should I go to the hospital or not? At the time here with COVID and everything, the hospitals were an awful place to be. So I tried to put it off. And lo and behold, I had the miscarriage at home. Um, and then again, this wonderful doctor was insistent on, okay, because I emailed the next day. I was like, and at that point, that's the longest I'd ever gone. Like I got to 8 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And he was like, look, I want you to just come in for blood work and an ultrasound regardless. So about 5 days later, I ended up going in, and now I'm sitting there for a 45-minute ultrasound and I'm starting to panic. And then it's like, well, we want you to sit here and wait to speak to the doctor rather than just go home. And I'm like, okay, what's going on?
Happening? Yeah, that's a
And I'm
long time.
Yeah. So then a doctor on staff there was like, okay, so what do you think has happened here? And of
to
course
you.
Wait, ask
They
you
asked that
that?
to you.
yeah, he's like, what do you think is gone? Like, what do you think is going on? And I was like, well, we're still reeling from I had a miscarriage 5 days ago. And it's not to be gruesome, but I literally held it in my hands. Like I saw two little black dots and I saw the little tail and I saw the little head. And he's like, okay, all right. Well, there is a second live heartbeat right now, and it's in your fallopian tube.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So an ectopic. So a heterotopic is two pregnancies, one in the uterus and one implanting anywhere outside of the uterus.
Oh my goodness. I
I've
had
never,
thought.
I know, I feel like I'm very well versed in
Yeah, you are.
craziness, but I have never heard of that.
Yeah. So then he's like, so we've got to rush you to the hospital. And I'm like, okay. And you're going to need to have surgery. And can they implant it in the uterus? No, that's never done. It's like, okay. All right, we're going to call an ambulance. And I just couldn't get in the ambulance. I was like, no, no, no. I'm going to go home. I'm going to have a bite to eat. I'll go to a hospital closer to home. And he's like, you don't understand.
Right.
This is life-threatening. If it ruptures, there's no telling how
Yep.
this could go for you. So, um, anyway, I insisted on actually driving myself to the hospital, which was a 10-minute drive from there. And I honestly don't know how I made it there, but I just frantically parked, went in, and they were calling the hospital before I got there already and sent all my documents. So I didn't really have to wait. And then my husband got there, and then we went through the process, and they did another check and the heartbeat was still rising. And now it was just devastating because it's like, wow, all I ever wanted were twins, the irony of it all. And if this little heartbeat was still going, excuse me, there's no telling, could it have survived?
I know. Yeah, that's so
Oh,
tough. And I, you
that's
said like,
amazing.
you said it without saying that you asked the question, but like, no, they can't remove, like they can't transplant that to the uterus. And I feel like that's every mom's first question is like, how can we get it out of the wrong place?
They don't transplant them, it can't be done.
Mhm.
And so I had to make a decision. Do you want to be chemically treated for 3.5 months and it could rupture during that period anyway and still be life-threatening? Or do you want to remove your tube, which also means you will have 50% less access to your eggs?
Yeah.
And it is major surgery because they go through your uterus and remove a tube and 10 weeks recovery. And anyway, after, going back and forth with the doctors, made the decision that it was safer to remove the tube. So did that. And I couldn't walk for the first 2 weeks.
Oh,
Wow.
goodness.
And
I'm
the
so
emotional
sorry.
toll, yeah, of having the miscarriage at home and then having a second experience literally hours after.
Yeah. So, I mean, and the thing is that Like I'm very, you can probably tell, pretty good at like being emotionally versed. But in that instant, I knew it was like I had to completely compartmentalize and just deal with, okay, the process. Because if I had started to sit there and say, are you kidding? Like, what is happening right now? And a second loss, I would have been a complete puddle.
Sure.
So I didn't actually start feeling the emotions of the event. Like, don't get me wrong, I cried. Like, actually, when I came out of the surgery with my eyes still closed, all I could think is that baby's gone too. And my dear sweet husband, who I can feel beside me, is dabbing as quickly as they're forming these tears around my eyes. Yeah, it was just one of the most loving
Oh,
experiences of my life, to be honest with you. Like, so attuned and so caring. But it really took about 10 weeks to start grieving.
sure.
And that was horrendous because people don't realize, oh, it's just a loss. Oh, it's a miscarriage. I mean, you've been through six, God bless you, but it's like, no, that was a life that could have been,
Mhm.
Yeah.
that was a hope. That was a child that,
It's to your point earlier, your husband like already going to the due date and like this is it's grieving everything that could have been or was supposed to be.
yeah,
And then having to say, okay, now we have to restart everything that we have just put behind us and like somewhat close the door on.
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So
Well, this
sometimes I would say to people like, I don't know, like if you had imagined somebody's child dying, like that's what it is. It's the
right?
same intensity of feelings. And actually, that's the other thing is that doesn't really get like enough attention. Like infertility, yes, we're not fighting for our lives. We're not, thank goodness. But the like emotional and cognitive experience of it has in the research has come out to equate to people going through cancer and HIV treatment. Like it's that severe
Wow.
Mhm.
scenario.
I totally I think I've read that as well because I mean you're talking about life and death. I mean ultimately like you're
Mhm.
wanting to bring this life into the world. Oh my gosh, your story is very complex. I feel like we maybe have just touched the surface. Is there anything else? I know we really want to make sure that we touch on your beautiful project that is coming out from your experience, your ebook. I'd love to give you some time to talk about that. And then really anything else that you want listeners to know, either about your own journey or some takeaways that you've learned, from your experiences.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so just as a passion project, having gone through all that time in and out of treatment, um, doing, the research around and working with some really top doctors in Canada. I have to say, like, I've been really lucky. I truly have ended up working with the best of the best in Toronto. And so you learn a lot of evidence-based stuff. I also have a master's in health science and health promotion. So what is the most evidence-based kind of stuff out there? Because I know we get really mired in, okay, now eat pomegranates. Okay, go and do an acupuncture twice a week. And I mean, if somebody tells you to like, tap your head and spin 3 circles around, like you'll do
Yes.
it,
Yeah. Yeah.
Try it all.
so so it's like, okay, hold on, how do I maybe with what I've learned around managing relationships, managing your diet in terms of nutrition and the things that you can do to improve egg quality and sperm quality on a 90-day cycle, and what's the actual facts out there around foods to eat that can help facilitate implantation, and how do you advocate for yourself in the clinics and have your questions answered with doctors, that all that kind of stuff. I've been thinking very heavily about, and I thought I really would like to share what I've learned and give back in an evidence-based way. And so I'm working on an ebook for the IVF community or IUI community, and it's all, like I said, really research based and just can guide people. Like they can go in as deep or as little as they like. Like there's going to be about 5 or 6 chapters on different things, different topics, like supplements, for example, that are proven to help facilitate the process and outcomes versus nutritional support versus how do you manage your own emotions and feelings going through it all, that kind of thing. So people can pick like one or two chapters that are helpful for them or buy the whole ebook. And that's something I'm going to be talking a little bit more about as we go. So
I love that.
I know.
It's
I
I mean, this is our passion project, right? Might not be
Yeah.
evidence-based, but ours is like, let's get everybody's story out there. Let's create that platform. And I
fairness.
love meeting people like you that have said, this is this insane, excruciating experience, but let me turn it into something very positive where I can help others. I know it's not out yet and you have a ton of work to do, but I want to verbally tag your Instagram. So it would be at True, TRUE.IVF.Story. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah. So
I'm sharing on there, right?
yeah, exactly. So probably release it in the late spring, early summer. People want to look out for it.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to see it. I know for sure, I'm gearing up for IVF transfer here in May. So I for sure definitely want to read it and like look into it and just share it as much as we can because it's going to be so helpful. I'm really excited for it. But we are so excited you were on with us and just sharing your whole story and just everything you've gone through. Again, we just want to say we're so sorry for your loss and losses and just everything you've gone through and just really excited and hopeful for you with your surrogacy process. And we'll definitely be following along with you and just everything that you're sharing on your Instagram.
Thank you. And thank you, ladies, for having me and for all the work that you're doing. It's really incredible and sharing your own journeys along the way, too. This is the stuff that feeds our souls, right? So you're doing really important stuff.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for being here.